"Don't turn around, Dad." Those were his last clear words to me. He said it low, like a secret. He said it right into the baby monitor speaker, even though he was in the next room. I turned anyway. I saw someone step out of the hall, and I saw my own jacket first. I will try to tell this clean because I don't sleep and I don't want you to make the same mistakes. It was just me and my boy most nights. His mom worked late. We had the small 2-bedroom on the corner with the warped front step. I kept things simple. I set up a cheap camera kit by the doors, a baby monitor in his room, and in the kitchen drawer I kept a small flashlight and a hammer. I thought I was doing the normal dad stuff. I made pancakes on weekends. We kept Lego in a plastic bin. It felt safe enough. The first time I noticed him, I thought it was a neighbor. There was a guy leaning on the fence across the street around midnight, not moving, head down, like he was resting. I watched him from the living room window until my eyes hurt. "You okay?" I said out loud, even though he was across the street and the window was closed. He didn't move. I texted Luis next door. "You see the guy?" Luis came out onto his porch 2 minutes later. He did the hand over the eyes thing and looked up and down the street. "No one there, man," he said, and he went back in. When I looked again, the fence was empty. I told myself I was tired. I checked the front camera after I put my boy down. It showed recorded clips at 11:03, 11:06, 11:12. Motion detected. In each clip, the street was empty. In the last one, there was a smear near the bottom edge, like a shirt sleeve sliding out of frame. The timestamp jumped back a minute by itself when I scrubbed the timeline. I told myself it was cheap gear. I went to bed with the monitor on the nightstand. My boy slept in his room. I slept with the door open. At 2:13 a.m., the monitor pinged. Motion. It showed the crib, the little blue rabbit nightlight. It showed the bars at a weird angle like the camera had tilted. The app said, "Baby breathing normal." It showed the empty mattress. My son was asleep next to me. I sat up so fast I made him cry. I carried him back to his bed. He clung to me. "He's in," he said into my shirt. "It's okay," I told him. I didn't believe it. I held him until his breath went slow. Then I set him down. I made myself peel away. I called the non-emergency line in the morning. I said we had a prowler or a glitch. I wasn't sure. They sent a car at lunch. The officer had a notepad and a tired way of standing. He looked at the front door. He looked at the camera app on my phone and said, "These things trigger on moths and shadows." He checked the backyard. "Looks fine." I felt stupid. "Sorry," I said. He wrote down my name anyway. Things were normal for a day. I took my boy to school. I packed his lunch. I worked, then went to get him at 3:15 like always. The lady at the desk looked at me like I was messing with her. "He was already picked up, sir." My chest went empty. "By who?" She turned the screen so I could see. There was a clip from the lobby camera. A man in a gray jacket like mine. Hat down. On the clipboard, my name was there in my handwriting. My boy came out from the library with a teacher holding his shoulder. He looked at me and then looked at the man on the screen and laughed a small, confused laugh. "You came already," he said. "Then you said, go back and read while you find your keys." "I didn't," I said. "It sounded weak." The lady crossed her arms. "We called your phone," she said. "You answered." I showed her my call log. There weren't any calls. She shrugged. "Maybe it's not updating." The teacher leaned in and said, "Quiet. He had your voice." I picked my boy up and carried him out anyway, even though he was too big to carry, and I cried in the car. He wiped my tears and said, "It's okay," like he was the dad. I changed the locks that night. New ones from the hardware store. I took the old latch off and put the new one on. I set the deadbolt. I kicked the door to test it. It held. The metal felt solid. My hand smelled like machine oil. For a couple hours, I felt good. My boy watched a show. I made mac and cheese. We laughed at something dumb. It felt normal. Maybe it had been a mix-up at school. Maybe the camera thing was a glitch. I made a pile of the old locks for the trash and washed my hands until the oil smell was gone. At 10:40, the back door opened by itself. The sound was clear. The click. The push. I thought it was in my head, and then I felt cold air down the hall. I grabbed the flashlight and the hammer and told my boy to stay in his room and to keep the door shut. "If you hear me, say our game," I said. Our game was, I knock 3 times. He knocks back twice. He nodded with his whole face. I went down the hall, slow. The flashlight beam shook. The back door was open 3 inches. The new latch was turned. The screws were on the floor like they had backed out. I didn't know how that made sense. "Hello?" I said into the yard like an idiot. My phone buzzed. 911 callback. I hadn't called yet. I answered. A woman said, "Sir, do you have an emergency?" I said yes and gave the address. She said, "You just canceled a minute ago." I said, "No," and my voice cracked. "We'll send a unit," she said. 30 minutes later, no one had come. I called again. No record of my call. "Maybe you reached a neighboring city," the man said. He sounded bored. I talked to Luis the next day while we both took out trash. "Did you hear anything last night?" I said. He looked past me. He looked at the back of my head like he was trying to be polite. "You were out front around 1, he said. I waved. "You didn't wave back." "I was asleep at 1, I said. He shrugged with his whole body. "Okay." He pushed his bin back fast and closed his garage before I could say anything else. I started driving at night when I couldn't take it in the house. I would strap my boy in and give him a blanket and drive the loop past the highway, past the 24-hour grocery, back through the neighborhood and around again. He would fall asleep to the road. The car felt safe. It was a small space. I could see all of it. I kept the doors locked. One night at a red light, I heard the rear passenger lock click. It was like a knuckle popping. I turned and pulled on it, and it was firm, locked. I checked the other locks and then felt stupid. The light turned green. I went through. The car behind me stayed behind me for 3 turns. It was the same model as mine, same dent on the left fender. I told myself I was seeing dents in every car. I took a random right. The car kept straight. My heart hurt from the adrenaline. The baby monitor got worse. It would say motion detected and then show my boy's bed empty while he was in the kitchen with me, eating cereal. It would ping cry detected while he was laughing. It would switch rooms. Once it showed my bed with me in it, even though I was standing in the bathroom shaving. The me on the screen rolled over. I had to put the razor down. I went and stood in the doorway and looked at the actual bed and breathed slow until my hands stopped shaking. We should go outside, I told my son for no reason. We sat on the steps and threw a ball until the sun went down. School called and asked me not to use the side gate anymore. I never used the side gate. They sent me an email that said we cannot release to anyone not on the list, and my name was crossed out on the PDF. I went to the office. The same lady from before didn't look at me. "You came early yesterday and made a scene," she said. "You took him and then brought him back." "No," I said. I could hear how useless it sounded. She pushed a clipboard at me. "Update your contacts, sir." I wrote my name again, like writing it mattered. I walked my boy to class. He held my hand so tight our fingers hurt. A man waited at the end of the hall. He had my build. He wore the same gray jacket. He stood behind the glass and he smiled a small, polite smile like I always try to do. I pulled my son closer and put my body between them. By the time I looked again, the man was gone. "Dad," my boy said, "that was you." I shook my head. He looked down like he was the one who messed up. I hate that look on his face. I hugged him until the bell rang. My calls started failing. My ex stopped answering. When she did answer, she said, "Stop calling at 2 a.m. Go to bed." I didn't call at 2 a.m. My mom texted, "You already told me this," when I tried to explain. The neighbor across the way left a note in my mailbox about me parking in front of their house. I never parked there. I watched for the mailman after that and only got flyers. My world got small on purpose. Home, school, store, home. 2 nights before the last night, I put a chair under the front doorknob, like in old sitcoms. I set a pot on top of the chair so it would fall if someone moved the door. I tried to make a real trap. I moved my boy's mattress into my room and we both slept on the floor. At 1:12 a.m., the pot clanged. I sat up fast and swung my legs out from the blanket. "Game?" I whispered. 3 knocks came on the wall. I stared at my son. He was asleep. His hands were under his cheek. His chest rose and fell slow. "Game," a voice said by the door. "My voice." "It's just me." I picked up the flashlight and the hammer. I stood in the hall. The front door was closed. The chair and pot were in place. The sound had come anyway. The air felt thin. "Go away," I said. On the baby monitor screen, the hallway camera showed my back. It showed me standing there with the flashlight. It showed a man inches behind me, face close to my neck. Same jacket. He lifted his hand like he was going to tuck my hair behind my ear. The angle made us look like one person. I spun around and the hallway was empty. On the screen, the man stepped back like he knew my timing. "Stop," I said. I said it like you say it to a dog. We made it through the next day because I stubborned us through it. I had work in my ears and my boy in my head and nothing took. The evening was normal for 3 hours. We ate spaghetti. We watched a show with a dog that talks. I read 1 chapter of the spaceship book. My boy put his hand on my cheek when I got stuck on a word, and I decided we were fine. I brushed my teeth and watched my face in the mirror and told myself I was still here. At 10:09, the monitor pinged. Motion in the hall, then motion in my room. Then the camera said no signal and then came back. My phone vibrated with a call from 911. I answered. The operator said, "Sir, are you safe?" I said, "No," and she said, "You told me to call you back at 10. I didn't remember doing that. "Unit's 6 minutes out," she said. I heard the back door. Not the click. The soft touch of palm on wood. The lazy push. I took the flashlight. I told my boy to get under the bed. "Don't move," I said. He nodded. His eyes were wide but dry. "I love you," I said. "Don't turn around, Dad," he whispered from under the bed. He was close. His voice came through the monitor speaker on the nightstand too, doubled and thin. I walked into the hall. It was dark except for the nightlight. I pointed the flashlight at the floor to keep from blinding myself. The beam hit footprints, not mud. Dark sock prints, heel to toe, like someone had walked in from somewhere else. They were wet like sweat. They led from the back door to the hall where I stood. They stopped behind my heels. I felt breath on my neck, light and steady. My own size behind me. The flashlight trembled in my hand. I turned. His face was inches from mine. It was my face. Cheeks bluer from the nightlight. Same tiny scar on the lip from when I fell off my bike as a kid. He lifted his hand to my shoulder and squeezed once like a brother. He leaned in. His voice was in my ear. It was my voice. "I came earlier," he said. "Everyone said yes. I swung the hammer at his head and hit the door frame. It stuck in the drywall. I yanked it free and swung again and hit nothing. He moved like I moved. Too close, too smart about my reach. He put his hand on my wrist and pressed. Not hard, just certain. I couldn't feel the hammer. He turned my wrist and the hammer slid to the floor, and I hated the sound of it. He smiled with my mouth. "Shh," he said. "He sleeps better when you don't make a big thing." Footsteps came from outside. Fast. Radios. Finally. I yelled, "In here!" He smiled past me at the bedroom. I smelled my own soap on him. I went to push him back, but he stepped in and my shoulder hit the wall. I felt his breath at my ear, warm. It was wrong to feel comfort and fear at the same time. My son was under the bed. My son was hearing this. I had time for one thought. I thought, he's been telling everyone I already came. He's been making my calls before me. He won. Then he said one more thing, right in the hollow of my ear, quiet so my boy wouldn't hear. "Stay." I don't remember moving. It felt like falling into a mirror. It felt like walking into a room I had already walked out of. It was simple and it was done. I was the first officer through the door. The radio chatter in my head went quiet because the house was quiet. Front door looked fine, no forced entry. The chair with the pot was still there. The pot had scuffed the door paint. I remember that detail because I wrote it in my notes. The flashlight lay in the hall. A hammer on the floor by the wall with 2 fresh dents. I called out and got only my own voice back. In the bedroom, a boy lay with his head out from under the bed like he had started to crawl and stopped. He was awake. He did not cry. He said, "There are 2 dads." He said it flat, like a fact he was bored of saying. We cleared the house. No one. No sign of struggle. The back door was off by half a hinge. The screws sat in a neat line on the counter. I looked for the father in the street and the alley. No luck. I came back in and checked the cameras with the other officer while we waited on a detective. The hall feed blinked and then played. It showed the father in the hall with the flashlight. Then a second man stepped in behind him. Same jacket. Same hair. Same shape of head. The second man put his mouth to the father's ear and said something I couldn't quite make out over the cheap microphone. The words ran over each other. It sounded like, "Stay," and "I'll take it from here." The father lowered his shoulder. The bodies overlapped like you could lay one on top of the other. The picture froze. The recording time jumped forward 2 minutes by itself. When it resumed, the hallway was empty. I carried the boy outside. He put his hand on my shoulder like he had done it before. As we walked past the bedroom, the baby monitor clicked and hissed, and then somebody breathed into it. The sound filled the room. Not crying. Just slow breath. I had the feeling I was listening right at a person's ear. The display said, "Motion detected. Nursery." The crib was empty, but the monitor light pulsed like a heartbeat. I left it there and kept walking, and when we reached the door, the light on that little screen was still pulsing in the dark. That's it for tonight's tale. If it kept you up, maybe leave a like to keep me company. Subscribe for more strange stories, and maybe, just maybe, click the next one before the lights go out. See you in the next one.